deeply inside nature through the magnifying glass of science. Designers are growing novel technologies not foreseen or anticipated by nature.
Okay, welcome to AI Hell. You're probably wondering what this even is, so there is this new league starting up. It's called the GFL, standing for the Good Fighters League. No, it doesn't stand for that.
Really good.
It stands for the Global Fight League, and these guys were already getting headlines for their aging roster as is. But look at this. They did a draft stream last night emulating the NBA or NFL draft style, and there is no other way to put it. They failed miserably here. Look at Verdum.
There it is. Get a good look for yourself.
Gus might be the worst one on this whole thing. Why are they trying to make Chad Mendes look like he's taller than 6 feet? I mean, he just doesn't look like that.
You're 5'4" at least.
Three inches taller than me, buddy.
I would play some of their AI-generated song here, but let's be real, they'll probably try and copyright strike the video or something stupid like that. Music copyright is the worst on YouTube, but just take my word for it. It's really bad and obviously AI. So as I said, this is AI hell. Just look at the broadcast they put together here. Look at their roster. These guys are willing to spend some serious cash, and instead of putting together a quick stream with the roster, some really nice footage of the guys that they captured themselves in time for the show, or just to let them call in like some of those people did, they decided to put all their hopes and dreams into the AI basket, and it came out looking like a Facebook fever dream. I mean, it just looks like one of those terrible posts you see your grandparents sharing on Facebook or something.
What round they rise and finance at?
And what's really weird about this is how lazy it is, but also how much effort they clearly put into the GFL draft stream. I mean, this thing lasted 3 hours, and look at this panel. They got Mike Goldberg, Dr. Schwab himself. Say what you want to about the man, there is no way they got him for cheap, or any of these people. Caroline Pierce, Robin Black, they got them all together in studio for this, got a whole crew, rented a set out, and then they got just about every big name they signed to join in on this stream. People are not gonna do this kind of thing for free.
Who doesn't want to revisit Mount Rushmore again and again and again?
And then they just throw this AI slop on top of it. It just all looks so cheap and tacky.
Well, I think it would be very realistic. It would look just like him.
Perfect.
The stream should have been no longer than an hour, probably way better is half an hour. Bellator did a far better job with their announcements. Either go all out and get them in person, make a big show of it, or make it short, sweet, and clean to the point. This AI stuff just makes it look so cheap, especially when they clearly have the money to do otherwise. The roster is plenty of proof they are throwing around some major cash on this thing. Shout out to Oven, who runs our social accounts. He put this on his Twitter, some quick stats on this. So like I said, they got some of the biggest names of yesteryear. The average age of those fighters, though, is 36. If you watch Tommy Tohold's Age of Decline video he did on this channel,
After all those numbers were run, we know the age of decline in mixed martial arts. It's 34.
and look at Team Miami's average, it's 36.7 years old. More than a quarter of their roster is over 40. 61% is over the age of 35, and 3 of their fighters are 47 on the roster. So those being Alexei Oleinik, Yoel Romero, and Verdum. But look at a few more of these. Arlovsky, Faber, Mir, Rashad Evans, they're all 45. Woodley is 42. They just nabbed Chris Weidman, who we all thought just retired. I mean, on one hand, it's fine. If you want to keep fighting, that's your prerogative. Do what you want, right? But these guys are marketing this promotion as a legit competitor to the UFC. They're not trying to do some fight circus or Triller kind of thing where they just put on crazy, wild fights. They're actually trying to be serious about this. And that's personally not my bag either way. As much as I like MMA just for the sake of it, I don't think the point is to have a CTE factory for the elderly. That's not the point of MMA. There's more of a purpose, in my opinion, to high-level MMA, like, I don't know, finding out who the best on the planet is. PFL actually had some good fights last night, too. It can be done putting on real talents against each other at a high level outside of the UFC, but this is doing the opposite of that. And this kind of gets to the heart of it because PFL isn't really really doing well either. It all highlights a central question to me. What is it that these organizations are even doing? I think we reached the point of no return with the UFC and their competition. When Zuffa first took over the UFC, they weren't even the big dogs in MMA. Back then it was Pride. After that fell, Elite XC gave it a shot, so did Affliction. IFL, which was really similar to GFL with the team system. But Strikeforce was a very real competitor to the UFC, and they basically only sold because they were owned by venture capitalists who wanted to cash out. That was their whole point anyway. Get that bag and leave. Bellator did have some success to a lesser extent, and PFL has taken that mantle since. One is still kind of hanging on out there, and now there is GFL with this marketing strategy. The ability to compete with the UFC in the decade since Pride fell have just dwindled down massively, and it feels like this is kind of the culmination of it all. The Fire Fest of MMA.
Motherfucker don't look like me.
And for PFL, you guys know the story behind it, right? Don Davis, who bought it from the old ownership, isn't even a fan of MMA.
What is Don's favorite all-time MMA fight?
So, people who are doctors don't watch medical shows. People who are lawyers don't watch legal shows on TV. I'm aware of everything that's going on because it's important for business.
What's the best fight you've ever watched?
Well, it's interesting. I'm going to answer it differently. It's boxing for me.
What? Dude, you're on an MMA show and you gotta ask what your favorite MMA fight was. You didn't even name one in your promotion and said boxing? What are you doing?
2016, you're at your desk, comes through the wire, UFC sold for $4.025 billion. You don't know much about MMA at this point, right? And you say, holy smokes, you know, where's the competition?
So it reminds me when I went to America Online in 1997, it was only worth $4 billion. And I had an email, but nobody else did. The internet was just starting its growth. So I go, it's kind of like MMA.
I kid you not, this is the only reason he got involved in the sport. Is that a valid reason to get involved with this? Yeah, without a doubt. Chase that money, I get it. Get after it. But clearly, the research wasn't really done here. This guy just watched the UFC sell for $4 billion and said, I can do that. It is not that simple. For instance, the UFC sunk about $45 million into it before they ever turned profitable back in the day, and if it wasn't for the Ultimate Fighter taking off, they probably would have sold or folded long ago. Bellator was a struggling entity its entire existence. And the word is, even with their biggest MMA signing for the PFL with Francis Ngannou, they reportedly sold extremely low numbers, like 10,000 pay-per-view buys kinda low. Even in the dark ages, the UFC was selling many multiples of that, and I've heard from my sources a slightly higher number for that PFL card, but it's still egregiously bad no matter what. Reports were that Francis got minimum like 10 million to even do that fight. And I think Don Davis and the PFL are now forced to change tack because it's clearly not working. And now they've restructured their whole brands. No more $1 million tournaments, those are gone, it's down to 500,000, and they're moving away from their season format, so that's out.
You know, we took a lot of arrows at the beginning. You guys don't get it. The season won't work.
But I think they have recognized that the format doesn't work, the $1 million payout thing didn't work, the season format doesn't work, and they're trying to make changes.
And the reason I'm pointing this out is the co-leader of the sport, this is what's happening to them, and this is what the GFL is walking into. And it kind of looks like they have even less strategy. The same is true for One Championship, by the way. I know I haven't mentioned them much, but according to reports of their own filings, by the way, they've lost more than any other promotion we've ever seen.
Is the $383 million number accurate in total losses?
So one, we have raised a little over 500 million since inception.
Okay.
And we have burned approximately, I think, 350 around there right now, right? So we have about 150 on the balance sheet.
Like, what's happened to all their big star acquisitions? The 7-8-figure deals that some of those fighters were getting?
Without getting into detail,
okay,
the package in general, it's going to be an 8-figure deal.
They're all gone now.
If you think of signing with One Championship, don't. It's that simple. You should not. Yeah, it's been a bad couple of years. The stress I've been put through, the stress my family's been put through.
Meanwhile, other guys on their roster reportedly have incredibly restrictive contracts, far more restrictive than the UFC. And again, this is the world GFL is stepping into. If these reports are accurate, the UFC's competitors are far less successful than any other time since MMA's inception. The only exceptions for success in this sport so far outside of the UFC are the hyper-national ones like KSW out of Poland or Ryzen in Japan, but internationally they all tend to be struggling there. The GFL is just throwing heaps and heaps of money at this thing, buying every name they possibly can regardless of age, emulating the IFL format that didn't work in the 2000s. The truth is, I think the market has spoken on this, guys. MMA fans don't want the ABA to the NBA, they don't want the AFL to the NFL.
Everyone can eat shit! A big bag of shit! I'm the greatest man in the world!
Fans want one top-tier league that has everybody fighting in the exact same organization at the same time. And I think the sooner everybody starts moving in that direction, the better. Instead of focusing all your energy on trying to start these other promotions, maybe trying to reform some of these things inside the UFC would be a good start. Working on better fighter contracts, more pay. It's an uphill battle, but I think it's a more winnable battle than trying to start your own league that competes with the UFC after all these have failed and the literal hundreds of millions that people have thrown at it. It's not working, plain and simple. And again, a lot of these fighter contracts from these other organizations are allegedly worse than the UFC and more restrictive. The reports are mainly about one championship, but you've seen the old Bellator stars that have now left PFL for their contracts, right? And don't get me wrong, we criticize the UFC a ton on this channel. It's to the point where half of our comments are about how we hate on the UFC too much. You can't just waltz in and try to throw money at every retired fighter you can see, put some AI music behind it and AI videos, really bad ones at that, and expect success. I would legitimately be super shocked if this works out. If it succeeds, I'm really happy for them. Honestly, but I just don't see it. Either way, this is the laziest and most hilariously embarrassing shit show of a promotional video I have ever seen in my life. At least it's hilarious. The tech just isn't there, and instead of it looking slick, it looks like my teenage nephew downloaded Photoshop for the first time and gave it a crack. You just can't expect to be taken seriously like that. Anyhow, that's my 2 cents on this one. Let me know what you guys think. There was no way I wasn't going to talk about this. And a quick shout out to our Hall of Famers for supporting this channel. You guys are seriously awesome. And anybody that wants to join in with them and help support this channel, it really does mean a lot. We really appreciate you guys. But just in general, we appreciate you guys for watching. So have a great day, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace.